Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's the Hook Better Leads podcast. Today, we're talking to Dave Sullivan. How's it going, man?
Great, Tim. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm doing well. And today, we're talking about beginning with the end in mind and knowing your numbers as a contractor. Dave has been hosting the roofing show and actually talking to a ton of roofing businesses. He works with them on the problems. He consults with them. Talk to us a little bit about this wild journey of hosting this podcast. You guys, have a lot of listeners and stuff like that. How has it been consulting and doing this podcast?
Well, it's been great. I was a contractor out here in Northern California for 30 years, roofing contractor. And I sold my business and retired, got a little bored, wanted to reconnect with the industry, some of my friends. So back then I listened to, this is going back, a good 3 years. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and there were no podcasts for the roofing contractor, how to build your roofing business. So I started this podcast called The Roofer Show, and just to kind of get going, reconnect. I'd have some of my friends on as guests. It's about, bringing on attorneys, accountants, type of thing on how to build your business. So I started doing that, and now here I am, episode, I don't know, 225 or so. So It's going great. And I got that going. And then I've just started out from the request of a lot of my listeners was to do one-on-one coaching. So I'm doing that. It's all great.
I think that's a great mindset. For anyone out there, if you ever do get into a podcast, just this mindset of like, if you're doing it to connect with people, it's a great connector. Like it is, it's a good referral tool, to be honest. It's a good, there's a lot of opportunity to just like network with podcasts. To be honest, man, I network with podcasts. I get free coaching through podcasting. I love podcasting for this reason. Like, and yes, we get some audience and downloads and watches on YouTube and stuff, but hey, like just the connections and like the things I learned personally from this has been huge for me.
Oh yeah. There's dozens of podcasts now, and most of them are great, and you can get so much value out of that. All of this free information. If you take the time to listen to the podcast, watch YouTube videos, it's all out there. It will help you run your business.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think people jump to courses and like stuff like that. Yeah. And like, hey, I sell services, you sell consulting, like there's stuff going on. We want to sell our stuff, but at the same time, like people think you have to buy crazy, like $1,000 courses or stuff. Like even, us as individuals, like look at our free stuff first. We're giving away, like our point of this podcast is to give away as much as we possibly can of value. So like, I think a great place to start is to do some of the, the free stuff on a person that you're thinking about working with first and kind of get their mindset and then maybe, do the next thing and do a course or something like that.
Sure.
But
I've got, I was just going to say, I've got a lot of old dusty seminar manuals out there that I haven't looked at in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
No, I mean, and there's basically just this idea of there's just so much free, awesome information out there. And okay, so I know that you're passionate about this. How can a contractor start with the end in mind? I love this idea, but talk to us about that.
Well, what I do is business planning. So the first thing I always start with is the end. It's your destination. Where are you trying to go? And then that way we can come back, develop a roadmap, reverse engineer a plan to get us there. So that's the first thing. And that may be different for different people. I mean, if you're starting up in the construction business, it's just making it through those first 2 years, which is your end, because statistically, you're probably not going to do it. But if you're in your 50s, you need to start thinking about an exit strategy. And that takes years to think about. So maybe that's your end, or bringing your family in. Well, we've got to think about that and come up with a plan now. We've got to get people trained, put your business into a saleable position, because most people just close the doors, walk away, no value, because there's nothing there. So that's if that's our end, we can design a plan to get us there.
So you're not talking about I had a very smart construction lawyer one time tell me like, what is that? What is that? And it scared the shit out of me, to be honest. I was like, what is it? What, I'm like 25 or something, and he's being nice and consulting with me a little bit. He's like, said that. And I was like, like, I think I want to be on a beach somewhere, maybe one day, like
Yeah,
I actually don't know. And it kind of is an existential crisis a little bit when you ask it. So how do you see roofing contractors in general react when you challenge them on this? Because a lot of us have not defined that end.
exactly. And that way you're just not going in the right direction. If we're going to go climb that mountaintop over there, we've got to have a direct goal, direct path. Hopefully somebody that's been there before to help guide us and get us there.
What's
But
the most common one you see? Like, is it usually selling the business, or is it usually like retiring with like a legacy, or what is the all
no,
kinds of different things?
rarely. And when you get down to it, it's never looking ahead and building your business to be saleable. And which is why very few construction companies end up in a sales and an exit where you can be sitting on the beach somewhere with a ton of dough. Very rarely does that happen.
Because
So
they're often thinking like in terms of revenue, like I want to be 15 million in revenue or something like that. Is that the most common?
that's the most common.
Yeah.
So go, well, what are you doing now? Well, I'm doing I'm doing $5 million. Okay. You want to do $15 million. First off, are you making money at 5? Well, not really. So you want to do 15? Well, if you're not making money at 5, you're sure as hell not going to make any money at 15. You're just going to lose it a lot faster. So that's the first thing. And then we ask, okay, why do you want to do that? Well, because everybody talks about growth and everybody says I should be big. And this is the end goal for so many people, is to just keep growing. And again, we just come back to the why. Well, it's usually because I want to make more money. Okay. So let's say I want to make 250 grand. Okay, fine. What about if we can do that? You're at 5 million now, you're not making any money. How about if we do that at 3? We get the business under control, we start making money, we get our profits up, and there's less work to it. There's less risk. It's easier to control, and you can make a lot more money. It's not about the size. This is not a business where you make it up in volume. We're not selling carpets here. It's all about the margin, the gross margin. So it's not about the growth. I want to see a solid foundation first, profitable business, then we can start growing. But until then, you've got to have control, because what happened, and this happened in my case, we had a big year in growth. You don't have the people, the qualified people to do the work. So you're actually hiring B players. And then one thing leads to another. All you are is just stressed out more. You're not making any more money because you're not in control. So we actually just stepped back and scaled it back a little and got back in our, what I call right sizing your business, where your sweet spot is. And that's different for every contractor. And that's really the end, is everybody's just so worried about, talking about growth and that top line. It's all about the bottom line, not the top line.
I love that. So what are some other key numbers that contractors could be focused? Is there any other numbers that you'd say besides, I know what you're saying. You're saying profit, dude, focus on profit. But what else are some key numbers? I basically knowing your numbers is a big theme. It sounds like in a lot of like your coaching and stuff like that. So what are some other numbers that you see people need to focus more on?
Well, it's totally about knowing your numbers and understanding your numbers. And too many contractors they don't run their business by the numbers. So the way I look at a construction business is it's like a 3-legged stool. Okay. And the three legs, you have to sell work, you have to do work, and you have to keep score. And each of those legs has to be strong and solid. And what tends to happen is, let's say we've got, like the situation now, we've got a ton of sales and we sold the work, but we can't do the work because we don't have the qualified people. Or we've got the work, we're doing the work, but our scorekeeping is not there and we're not getting our bills out because it's going too fast. So all of this has to be in balance. So if we take a look at the numbers, it's, with the sales is first starting off at the end, what's our sales goal? Okay, then let's say it's $1 million. Well, we've got to break that down into pieces. We take a look at what's our average job size. Okay, that's how many, then we just divide that in. That's how many jobs we have to do in a year. And you can break that down by month, by week. Now, to get those jobs, we need our close rate. Let's say we sell 1 in 3 jobs. So every time we go out and make a proposal, we lose 2 of them, we sell 1 of them. Okay, well, how many leads do we need to get those 3 proposals out? Okay, and it just goes back like that. And it again, starting
And I'm
at
going to
the
add
end.
one more to that, which is, where are we getting the best leads from that have the best close rate? Because you can see there's rotten batches of leads coming in from, like, let's say a home advisor or something like that. Or, maybe you got like medium leads that are coming in from Facebook ads. And then maybe you've got, I tend to think, the ripest leads coming in from Google organic. But the point is like, where are your best leads? Or the best of the best is the referrals, right? So let's the lead sources is another one. And where you're getting your leads, what lead sources are bringing in the most leads, and how much are you spending on those batches, and how much are you spending per lead. The scary part about saying it that way is that there's some contractors that are going to say cost per lead. Oh, I need to go out and buy a lead per lead. No, I'm saying like working on, worrying about the best directions to be pushing on, and then figuring out who do you want to be pushing on those directions, and whether it's an outsourced company or you have an internal marketing person or whatever you've got going on, the idea is that this direction works well. Let's push in this direction versus cost per lead. Because there's a lot of like scammy providers out there that will do, pay per lead model. And in the end, from my point of view, and I said this on your podcast, I just want to note it here again. My biggest thing is to own your marketing. We want people to own their marketing and to be able to take it with them wherever they go.
Just to have that goal, we have to know how many leads we've got to generate.
Yes.
And everything comes down to knowing those numbers, starting off with a budget of how many leads do we need to close those X number of jobs.
Yep. How do you pre-qualify your leads?
Well, this is a big problem, and is getting my customers to pre-qualify, because too many contractors, call comes in, they drop everything, they run out and throw a quote out. And the complaint they always have is because, I'm just so busy. So I'm just throwing out numbers. I'm not selling. I don't have a process for selling. And so pre-qualifying, you have to understand, first off, who's your ideal customer? Who is the person that you're trying to go after? And does that call fit? Because let's say out of 10 calls, we're probably going to disqualify a good 3 because it's not in our fit. It's not in the type of customer that we're looking for. And that's the first thing, is you have to understand and define that. We spend a lot of time defining that ideal customer, coming up with our avatar. And then it's a matter of, okay, where do they hang out? And that's when we get into the marketing, but
it's a good way to put it.
There's no point in going out and putting out a quote if these people don't have the money or the means to buy your services.
Or they're not the type of people that buy premium stuff, right? Like that's
Exactly.
okay. That's okay if you know that, but having a process up front, basically you're saying criteria, have some criteria. A lot of these guys don't have criteria yet.
Right. And you have to understand who that's going to be, because the reason you don't have time where you're always scrambling is because you're not pre-qualifying at all. You have to define that. So, okay, are we going to even take this? No, this doesn't fit into our customer. So we're going to pass on that. So now we're making fewer proposals, but we're more targeted on who we're making those to. So our close rate is going to go up. And this is what's so important. Now we have fewer proposals to put out. We can spend more time with the customer or our prospect in our sales process, and we go through all of the taking the time to ask the right questions to learn how to sell and sell the job. Now,
So you
going
have,
back to the pre-qualification, we use a project discovery sheet. So rather than just talking to somebody on the phone and just kind of rattling it off, we use a discovery sheet that has all these questions that we want to find out. And you start off by, do you have 5-10 minutes where we can talk about this make sure that it's a good fit for us? Because if it's not a good fit, let's start off with that right now. So it's asking the type of questions. What type of, what's your problem? What's your experience with construction projects? What's worked, what hasn't, what have been your problems? So it's really getting an idea. It's asking the questions and only spending the time with those that are qualified to buy your services.
Yeah, I think that's the mindset of like using marketing and sales as a filtering mechanism, not just an attraction mechanism.
Mhm.
And once you do that, it's funny, it gets more effective, right? Like it's
Sure.
when you get selective, your marketing and sales gets effective. I'm going to use that from now. No, just kidding. I don't know, but it does get effective because people can see that you have criteria and
Sure.
that you really, you want to work with people that you feel like you can knock it out of the park for.
Exactly.
And
This is
they
what we
like that.
do. I mean, the riches are in the niches. I tell I want to niche down and do what it is that we do well and we make the most profits. We don't want to be everything to everybody. And I see too many contractors, they're doing doors and windows, roofing, anything. Well, they're losing money on the doors. Okay, so scrap that. It's sucking your time. Let's focus on what we do well and whatever that is. And we're going to make sure that those are the people that we're attracting that want that service. And that way we can focus on our marketing, because we are the absolute best gutter installer, for instance, in the area. That's what we do. That's what we specialize. If you need gutters, you want to call us.
That's a perfect segue into, are there any other levers that you've seen that you can use to get your margins up?
Well, as I said before, the margins are everything. And there is so much you can, it's all about the gross profit margin. So we $10,000 we sell a job for, and let's say 6,000 are used in our labor, materials, permits, etc. We've got $4,000 left over, or 40%. Now, if we can raise that to 50%, that's awesome. That means we don't have to do as much volume. That means we're getting our time back. We're not stressed out. We're not trying to come up with cash, and all the problems that go with that. So it's a huge advantage. So the first thing is raise your prices. Okay. Almost every contractor I work with, I tell them the first thing you do, raise your prices 10%. Well, I can't do that. Well, have you ever tried? Okay, they try and they go, I haven't lost any business. Nobody said anything. Great. Get your margins, get your prices up. That's the first thing. Is contractors don't charge enough for their services. So, and learn to sell, learn the skills so you can go get those prices. so you can differentiate between your competitors. You can show them why you're different, show them why you're better, but you have to know how to sell. You have to have a process to do that. Does that make
And I
sense?
love what you're saying is basically like, if you are selective, then you can really give the love and attention to the real and best prospects.
Yeah, really can. And, it's all about, one of the biggest complaints I get is, I just don't have time. I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm working weekends. I never see my family. My spouse is all pissed off because I'm not there. Well, yeah, that's because you're running around in circles, putting out fires all day. So when we talk about those levers, we look at first off, sell to the right people, get your price that you need to make a good profit. And then we're going to do the work, and that's controlling the job. And that starts with knowing our numbers again. And here's how I sold it. I have, 10 man days, for instance. I'm going to talk to the foreman that's going to do the job before. We're going to come up with an agreement. Can you do it for 10 man days? There's no way. You're dreaming. Well, now we got a problem. But you've got to start off with an agreement. Okay, here's our budget. This is what we're going to shoot for. Okay. Otherwise, it's just, here, go do this. And we have no idea what we end up with. Does that make sense? It's just
Absolutely.
not controlling the jobs. And that starts off with a pre-construction meeting. We're going to go out there and we're going to dial this thing in, and we're going to hit our numbers. We're going to hit our margins. We're going to have far less problems on the job.
I love that. And lastly, how do you get more time back as a business owner?
Well, as we say, I'm working 80 hours a week and I'm just running around in circles. Well, it's getting back in control. And that comes from our systems and processes for every part of our business. We talked about the sales and pre-qualifying our prospects. That's a big one because you're running around putting out quotes and your close rates suck because you're not spending the time, and you're spending your time running around instead of spending your time with the customer. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, just as we said, not having a pre-job on that project. Now we've got constant screw ups at the job. So here they're trying to make sales, but they got a problem on the job. So smaller contractors, they've got to run out, take care of the customer problems, try to get these things done. And it's all the same screw ups that happen over and over again. And by having a process, which is really just a checklist, here is how we do it every time. And we're going to eliminate all these fires. And that's really what it comes down to, is having control, having a business plan, intentional, that we know what we're going to do. And this is what we work on. And you do get your time back. You feel more in control. You run your business with more confidence. And that's a big one. And you don't have to spend as much time, and you're making more money. Where's the problem?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I want to give you an opportunity, talking about business plans. You have like a one-page business plan on your website that you're giving away, correct?
Yeah. I've always, in my business, I've always had a consultant and a business coach to help me along. But what we did every year, we'd go on a retreat, and I ran a pretty large company. So we'd bring our key people in. We would put together our annual business plan, and it was a big production, very expensive, spent a lot of money doing this. And now that I'm working with the smaller contractors, how do we do that? Well, and what I found was, it's not so much the plan itself, the written plan, which we end up with, but it's that process of planning that we go through. And that's where we talk about, we talked about the end in mind. We talk about getting our sales numbers. What do those look like? How are we going to get to our destination? And just talking about it is huge. Really thinking this through, what can go wrong. I mean, here we are coming into 2021 with COVID. What's going to happen? Well, we don't really know, so we better have a plan A and plan B and plan C with whatever happens. So what I did, contractors complain as well, it's too expensive, it's too cumbersome, I don't know how to get started with business planning. And so what I've done, I've come up with a simple one-page business plan, which is going to go through a lot of the things that we talked about: identifying our ideal customer, how you do that, what makes you different and better than your competition, all of these things, and laying this out, getting in balance. And this is something you can do in 2 or 3 hours to get started. And that's what I call the one-page business plan. It's just a free giveaway that I have. It's a download. You can go to my website at theroofershow.com, pick it up, and it'll get you going. Just thinking about the things that we're talking about. Simple.
I always loved tools like this and things like this because I actually personally really enjoy doing, like, filling these types of things out and getting just my brain thinking a little bit bigger.
Yep.
Vision. What's like you said, like what's the ultimate long-term goal here? I find those things actually very energizing to do. So I think everyone should check that out if they get a chance. And you kind of this other call to action, which I'd say is, if you need a business coach, if you're a contractor who's in need of a business coach, certainly, think about this as an option. The roofershow.com, you also have like coaching services there. And yeah, just want to make sure that if anyone hasn't checked out your podcast yet, that's listening to my podcast, go check his out, The Roofer Show, on Apple Podcasts. And is there any other things you want to share as far as
the show is just really all about it's either interviews, and what I do is I throw in my experience, because why don't you learn from other people's mistakes and other people's experience rather than your own? It's a lot easier, a lot less painful. And that's what we talk about. And I did this for 30 years, so I've got a few stories to tell. I like to tell stories, and hopefully it's helpful to contractors. And what I do is just one-on-one coaching. It's very similar to what we're doing here. We start talking about, problems that you're having. It's a good sounding board. And if anybody's interested in that, just click the big button. It's a free call for 30, 45 minutes. We'll talk about strategy, what's going on in your business, and whether I can help or not. And again, is it a good fit? If it is, great.
Thing I love about having business coaches and consultants is that they're applying, it's all well and good to listen to as much stuff as you possibly can from a generic, we can share as much as we can, but until somebody zooms in on your business, here's all the context, it's hard to know what to do next. You could tell one thing to one business owner over here, but then you're compensating for some problems in their business or playing to their strengths. And then in another business over here, you tell them something completely different, because it's all about context. And that's not,
and we can have all the knowledge in the world, but it's all about implementation. Do you implement these things? Are you moving forward? And having somebody, it's part of it's being an accountability partner, where, hey, keep your feet to the fire, because you have to continue to make progress. It's like having that final exam out there. I know I gotta get it. I've got a deadline, and there's homework to do each week, because that's the only way you're going to make progress.
That's awesome. And huge value to accountability. So anyways, thank you so much for being on, Dave.
I appreciate it, man. That's great. You got a great show. Everybody should check out our interview, because you threw out some great information, and you can just go on, check mine out. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, so it's going to be episode number.
Talking about getting more qualified leads. So I think it's like how to get more qualified leads, and I think it's like it's like 225 or something like that. It's like so if people are listening in the future on the Roofer Show, But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and everyone check out his podcast and join us next week for the next episode of Hook Better Leads. And our URL is hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social. One more time, your guys' URL, Dave.
It's theroofershow.com or theroofercoach.com. I've got both of those. That's my coaching services. So check out either of those, and at least pick up the free download. Check it out. I think it'll really get you started thinking about the process of planning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And guys, see you next week.